1,000 better
1,000
stories.
better stories.
1,000 better stories.
1,000 better stories.
You're listening to 1,000 Better Stories, the Scottish Communities Climate Action Network's podcast sharing stories of community-led climate action in Scotland to help us all imagine the better and fairer future and transform what we think is possible. Hello, it's Kaska, your story weaver. Last year I visited Torry in Aberdeen to witness Torry People's Assembly held over a May weekend at St Fitch's Park. The Assembly was a part of the wider Just Transition Communities project, coordinated by Nescan Hub across the region, focusing on deliberative approaches to local climate action. It brought the community together to discuss how they could stop Energy Transition Zone, or ETZ, from taking over their precious green space at the park, how they could tackle other serious challenges facing them, as well as ways of injecting energy into positive local community projects. 1,000 Better Stories episode linked in the show notes gives you a taste of the Assembly Day itself and covers basics of the innovative People's Assembly approach used to facilitate this community's deliberations. So I was very excited to visit Torry again this year for the GO Torry event on the 15th of June. Celebrating all that's been achieved since the Assembly gathering. Today I take you on a journey through the day so that you can soak in the energy and hear from Torry residents and Assembly supporters about their work. And we off. Just boarded the train to Aberdeen. My bike. Right, I thought I'd look up the Declaration of Torry, which is a document that was created after the Assembly to sort of collect the ideas that emerged from the 2 days. And one big overarching thing they stated they mustn't sacrifice is our health and well-being. And to that end, we will do everything to stop the land grab, protect our park and green spaces through legal and, if needed, direct action as we continue to value, enhance and expand them. We'll continue to use our park and increase its already immeasurable value by organising more events and activities in it which support community health, educate our children, enrich all our lives and help us connect with and care for our land. We demand the incinerator be decommissioned in line with Scottish Government's 2022 moratorium, and we insist the Council focuses on reducing waste, recycling and renewables. We will seek support to set up a Torry retrofit project to insulate homes, reduce bills and emissions, improve health and provide meaningful long-term work here. And number 5 is we insist on a just and fair energy transition, not ETZ's obscure and unfair land grab. And number 6 is we will strengthen collaboration within our community and with others in Scotland and beyond to collectively transform the system driving the social, political and climate crisis. Pretty ambitious, but also very specific and focused ideas. So today we'll see where these guys are at in progressing against these actions.
Please retain your ticket on.
So you were serving breakfast today?
Yeah, it's just the start of the GO Torry days. We're offering free breakfast and even like scrambled eggs and cooked mushrooms and made on order.
I should have caught an earlier train.
Yes, yeah.
That's
There's
lovely.
been quite a few families coming in, and then there's also some like writing prompts and collaging things that people can do, inspired by questions around Torry and their experience of Torry.
In the Bridge Centre, there's a session there ongoing about retrofit buildings.
Oh yeah.
Hi.
Hi Scott.
How you
I'm
doing?
Kaska.
My name is Scott Herrett. I live in Torry. I also work for Friends of the Earth Scotland as a community organiser around a just transition for Aberdeen in the North East. So today I'm part of a workshop where we're gathering in essentially stories from people who live in Torry and people outside of Torry, what they think of Torry, and what that's for is that I'm working with a playwright called Emma Morris, and we're looking to produce a play about Torry. The working title is A Play for Torry. So the idea is to sort of tell an inspiring and celebratory story of Torry, as well as telling the stories of the past, present and possibly sort of future stories. So a lot of my work is supporting the Friends of St Fittick's Park, and so that campaign is about protecting the one accessible green space in Torry from industrial development. And so in a way the play is about telling that story, but it's also telling essentially the historical context to that story in terms of past injustices, what's happened in Torry where the land of the community has actually been grabbed and turned into industry, which is really only benefiting a few people, where the actual community have not necessarily seen that much benefit from what's gone on. But also the idea is to actually, it doesn't have to be like that, and so hopefully it will inspire people to actually improve the community.
If you could tell me a little bit about this venue and why it's important to the community.
So we're in the East Tullis Community Centre, and this is sort of pretty much in the heart of Torry. The actual community centre shares the same building as Tullis Primary School. We've got swimming pools to the right. So we've got the sort of Tullis playing field, and then beyond that you've got St Fittick's Park to our east. So just beyond that is what is potentially going to be industrialised. Behind us we've actually got the waste incinerator, which got built and switched on earlier this year, and then behind that we've got the industrial estate. So you look out that window and it's nice and green and it looks really nice, and it is, but then literally just behind us we've got this massive incinerator and also a highly polluting industrial estate. This whole place used to be called the Cheerful Vale, or the Vale of Cheerfulness. So if you can imagine, when the houses want the industrial estate here, it's like a natural glen essentially, and then that runs out to the Bay of Nigg, which was essentially Torry's beach, but that got, I say, destroyed for an industrial harbour. Again, that got completed a couple of years ago, so that would have just run out to like a really nice beach. I guess that's partly why the sort of green space is so important, because it's what we've got left, and that's why a lot of people are fighting to protect it. What part of today is about learning what people's perceptions are of Torry, whether you live here or you don't, and then also maybe thinking whether they're actually correct. And I mean, I've lived in Torry 3 years now, and I know before I moved here it had this reputation that it was a place that was unsafe, lots of crime, lots of drugs and all this sort of thing. But like, my own experience of the community is actually, it's my favourite place I've lived in. I've lived in Aberdeen 8 years, and I've lived in 2 or 3 different locations, and it's by far the best place I've lived in Aberdeen. And partly that is to do with the location, being it quite next to the sea, but also essentially the people. Like, there's definitely a lot more, you have a lot more conversations with people in the street, and there's definitely a stronger sense of community and identity, and I think that's what we're all looking for, really, and I found it here in Torry.
No, has it been a year since the Torry Assembly?
Yes, I think it's May last year, yeah.
So looking back on that year, what do you think the effect of the Assembly itself has been on the community, or on yourself, or on both?
I think, I mean, it's always hard to know what the effect is, but I think the legacy of it is that it's brought people together who have carried on essentially the work of the Assembly, which is about trying to get people from across the community to work out how we can improve the community. And so that's sort of been rumbling on, and I guess the main thing which came out of the Assembly was that network, but also the retrofit project, which is still in very early stages, and I would say it's still quite delicate in terms of it's relied on just a few people as always, but that is still going, and I think people are quite energised by that because people can see where it could potentially go, and it's extremely ambitious, but that's the sort of ambition we need when we're thinking about what we need to do in terms of responding to the climate crisis and what it means for our actual communities and where people live. And so for me, that it's really quite effective because it actually brings the climate crisis to actually, rather than it be this thing which is really scary and it's really like bad, which obviously it is, it actually brings it to where people live, and it shows we can make houses warmer, affordable, drier, and that's proven to actually improve health and lots of other things. So yeah, so that's quite exciting.
In 3, 2. Yes, well done.
My name is Priya. I represent Aberdeen Ethnic Minority Women's Group. I'm the founder and the managing director for the group. We have around 72 members just now, and around from 33 nationalities. Today in Torry, we're trying to connect with a lot of our women minorities in Torry, and we found some few new members and excited about it, excited about our future events in Torry. We are coming up with a swap shop, a reuse refuse event where we can upcycle our clothes. So that's something we are keen to do with the community, and it's sustainable. Today's event is just to connect with everyone here and also to promote buying minority women made, to support minority women of Aberdeen. So think local, think sustainable, think fun, think communities like Torry, Woodside, Tillydrone, all these areas, they need a lot of help. But also not just those areas, but also a whole of Aberdeen. We have quite a lot of people around Aberdeen who are minorities who are struggling, and they need the help too.
O Torry, where the sea meets the sky, the North Sea sings a timeless song.
My name is Marcelina. I'm a student, so I've seen lots of beautiful human in there. I mean, whatever people have of Torry, any bad description, I think this is far wrong from what I just saw now. Torry is beautiful. It needs a good reputation, and I believe that everybody needs to be seen and heard, no matter what.
Now we do our usual selfie. We always do our selfie where all of us are behind. We have to stay together. Yeah.
And just to say another massive thank you for everyone for your creative contribution, for being brave and standing up for all of it. And we're going to collate all this together, and then we're going to print loads of copies. Great.
Yeah, before you start the workshop, I'm sure.
Yeah,
It's going to be around the different venues.
Well, our film team are, but I'm just going to do this real workshop. My name's Lucy Stroud. I'm the Communications Officer at Station House Media Unit, a charity that's been based in Woodside for over 20 years. It really empowers people from disadvantaged communities, the 7 priority areas in Aberdeen, to have a voice and to tell their story on their own terms. And we do that through TV, film, radio, podcasts, press. So it's all about working with communities to have a voice and to share that, and often challenge dominant mainstream media messaging, which is often quite negative towards people that are experiencing hardship, often blaming the victim rather than actually supporting them. Yes. We do a number of campaigns every year. We've whittled it down to 3 around key areas that people that come to Shmur are worried about. So the first one is Challenge Poverty. So Challenge Poverty Week in October, we do a big campaign around that. We do a big campaign in May for Mental Health Awareness Week, and we support NESCAN's Climate Week North East. That's an area that we're really passionate about, being more sustainable in our own practices as an organisation, but also working with the community members to see what their concerns are surrounding climate change. Often it's not at the top of their agendas, and that is completely understandable, but actually the people that are most vulnerable are actually going to be most impacted by the effects of climate change. So it's really important that we can work together to try and raise awareness to how that might impact these vulnerable communities.
We'll start kind of like packing up.
I left Lucy to her Reels workshop with budding social media videographers and cycled along to the next event at the Bridge Community Centre Cafe.
Just heading into the Bridge Centre. It looks like a nice little building next to a tiny little green space there. Lots of raised beds and some pots of flowers, pansies, and lovely checkered tablecloths or tables. Right, going in.
As you do that, not only do you use less energy, you get warmer. Look at that, up at 20 degrees with less energy. That's the power of good insulation and airtightness.
My name is Lynn Restrup. I've lived in Torry for about 50 years. A three-generation who live in Torry. My mum lives in Torry, my oldest son lives in Torry, and I do, obviously, as well. The Bridge Centre, which unfortunately not everybody in Torry knows about, is an incredibly welcoming space. It's a community cafe. It's run by King's Church. They're looking to take over the building. We're located right next to the Golden Tea pub on North Balnagask Road. The cafe is normally open Wednesday, Thursday and Friday. Good healthy food at affordable costs. Most of the staff are volunteers and have lots of time to chat. So we have a lot of older relatives, and some of the relatives from the nearby nursing home come over and see it as a safe space to be able to get out and just relax and have a cup of tea and a chat. So that's really a great thing. They're opening today especially for us, so we're having free refreshments. We're also invited the RAAC affected households, which is a big issue in Torry, to have a space here to meet with other people in the community, and also the group from the community retrofit plan, which is something that was developed before the RAAC issue became known, but we're really hoping that it gives us an opportunity to open up a dialogue with the council about an alternative for these properties rather than just being demolished.
Can you explain for those people who don't know about RAAC what RAAC means and what the problem is?
So RAAC is a type of concrete which was put into a lot of houses about 30 to 40 years ago, maybe more. The reason it was done at the time was it's a lighter weight alternative to normal concrete, so it was more cost effective to build the houses quickly and cheaply then. It was put in the roofs, so if the roofs were lighter, then you didn't need the same strength in the walls and you didn't need such big foundations. So it solved a real housing problem that we had at that time. It was a good thing at the point, but now unfortunately it had a built-in life span and we've now exceeded that. So the concrete is breaking down, there's gaps appearing, and the council commissioned a report that said there was this type of concrete in 500 buildings in Torry, and the prognosis was very bad and people should move out of them straight away.
It's been a year since the assembly,
yes.
And we talked then. So what's been the effect of the assembly itself on the community or on yourself specifically?
I think it gave the community a voice, which traditionally hasn't had a very great voice, and that's why the council has put a lot of things here that maybe they wouldn't do in other parts of the city, that maybe people felt more confident about voicing their objections. So specifically what came out of the Torry People's Assembly was continuing meetings with the group, which was some people out with Torry and some people within Torry. When anybody who's an ally to Torry can come along to our meetings. We're not exclusive for Torry residents. In fact, some of our strongest supporters don't actually live in Torry, but they see a Torry community as really a marginalised community that does need a bit of a leg up, and we're very grateful for people who feel that way. A couple of the specific things that came out of the Assembly was the need for better communication, which was where the idea for the community website came about, and then we found out that Smooth Radio had funding to do this, so it seemed like a perfect marriage with us and them, so that's quite a long way down the line. So Smooth Radio is speaking to people today to get some more ideas about what people would like to see on the website. Well, the other major problem that was identified out of the Torry People's Assembly was the state of the housing in Torry. And this was before we even knew about the RAAC. This was about the lack of maintenance, the houses that are damp, and generally just the upkeep of the building. Because unfortunately a lot of the houses that have RAAC actually had damp before, so even if you the roof's off, that's not going to solve all the problems, which is where the retrofit comes in.
Personally, your focus has been on which part of the work?
Most of my role I see is sort of building relationships within different groups in Torry. There's a lot of different groups that are in Torry, or people, other organisations who want to work with the people in Torry, and it's just a case of sort of introducing them to each other. For example, the British Centre where we are today, you know, they were desperate to get involved in the community, and we were really keen for them to be involved. So it's just a case of working out how that can happen, and that's all about just getting to know individuals, building those relationships, so you can phone somebody or email somebody and say, we want to do something absolutely crazy, can you help us? I'd say that the Torry People's Assembly is an umbrella organisation. It exists to link other groups together. So if you live in Torry, you've got an idea about something that you want to do, about community gardening, or, you know, organising walks, or doing anything really, child activities, health activities, just get in touch with us. You know, we're here to try and facilitate those connections that, you know, we could put you maybe in touch with somebody else who's interested in something similar. So you're not on your own. Whatever ideas you've got for improving the community, other people will have similar ideas, and together we're going to make it work. We struggle to get some of the newer residents into Torry involved. We'd really love to, you know, hear their voice. I liken it to a train. That sounds really silly, but sometimes if you waited until everybody got on the train to leave the station, you'd never leave. Sometimes you just have to leave the station on the train, and then people will join at different stops along the way, and then you'll end up at the right destination, just not the way you maybe planned it. You just got to let it happen.
It's been loads of kids around, everyone seems to be enjoying it, lots of information especially. I'm Amy Bruce, I'm the secretary of the Torry Community RAAC campaign group, who are basically just fighting for what we deserve in terms of our RAAC affected properties. So we just came to raise awareness of that today. We were more here interested in the retrofit project and the impact that could potentially have on our RAAC affected properties, but there was quite a few people who were here and interested in that and listening to it, and hopefully the word will spread and we can take that further. I'm a homeowner, so I bought my house 2.5 years ago and got the letter through in February to say my property is affected by RAAC. So we're just awaiting the outcome of the council's consultations and investigations to see what they're suggesting and what they're going to do going forward. We need to come to some sort of solution so that we can feel safe in our homes again. There were so many people affected, and Torry is still a community, and we just felt that coming together as a community was the best way to ensure that we get what is right for us. The community that we've got is just fantastic. If you're in Torry, you're in Torry. Like, everyone knows everyone, and yeah, I moved here when I was 10 years old, so I've been here 17 and a half years now. For the majority of that time, a lot of my family were here, but slowly again that's beginning to change because my auntie was in a council RAAC affected property and her new property is not in Torry, so slowly that is changing. I think that is going to have an impact on Torry. I actually wasn't part of really any of the Torry events up until quite recently. I wasn't aware of a lot of the things that went on in Torry, so it's actually been quite interesting recently to find out. We've since been to one of the Torry Assembly meetings and they're kind of supporting us in the background with parts of our campaign too.
You coming in for the presentation?
Welcome to GO Torry. This is a big community event that is celebrating lots of community initiatives that have been happening over the last year, but have been happening over many years in Torry, and really trying to initiate positive projects for the community that are empowering and making change and just getting stuff done. And today we've got this conversation which I'll introduce, but we're also celebrating the opening of an outdoor classroom in St. Felix Park. You can be there too and get a sandwich, and then at 2:15 we'll be celebrating the opening of the outdoor classroom. What we're here for today is to talk about something that is really potentially and is hugely exciting for the community. This is a project about retrofitting and making Torry toasty and cosy. Sorry. And taking initiative to be the change for Torry and the change that Torry needs. So I'm going to let Matt introduce what retrofit is, how it could potentially work for Torry.
Hello, for those who don't know me, I'm Matthew Clubb. I run an architecture and retrofit business here in Aberdeen. We have an office on Union Street. I've been working with the Torry Assembly to talk about the potential of retrofit in Torry, which is fundamentally about how we have better housing. So I'm just going to basically talk about the retrofit project as a whole. I'm going to just explain what is retrofit, why retrofit, what have we been doing, and what are the next steps. Okay, so fundamentally the retrofit project is about the future. It's thinking about, what will Torry look like in 2045 or even 2035. What's our housing going to look like in the context of fuel poverty, in the context of the transition, in the context of the cost of living, and in the context of the climate crisis. So, as much as this is talking about insulation and improving our homes, for me it's also about the spaces between buildings. And that's what talks to the wider community engagement, because the opportunities for me here are not just that we have cheaper bills, but that we live in better homes that are fit for the future, that actually create local jobs, create local prosperity in a way that enhances the community. So the Torry Retrofit project, at the moment we've set it out in 4 kind of phases, and at the moment we're just at the start of it. So we're trying to engage with the community as much as possible. I do a lot of presentations like this. I actually run a community group in my own village in Davitt, where I do a lot of similar things. We're trying to do some sample retrofit plans. So on the table over here today, you'll see some sample retrofit plans that I'm going to talk through. We're trying to look at the opportunities, if there are any, with the RAAC situation. Are there any ways that what we're doing could help the RAAC situation? We're also looking at health. So some of the homes that we've been surveying in Torry, we're actually going to monitor things like air quality and living temperatures and things like that, because there's actually huge health implications for improving our housing. And the final one at the bottom there is about stakeholder outreach. So we're trying to engage with the council, we're trying to engage with other community groups, also trying to engage with energy companies and financial institutions. So because we, this is a big challenge and it needs lots of input from lots of stakeholders. So phase 1, we're just sort of almost coming to the end of it. Phase 0. Phase 1 would be going a bit wider. So at the moment we've done 3 retrofit plans for 3 different types of houses, but there's lots more different types of housing in Torry, and we need to think about how, if we were to improve all the housing on a kind of street by street basis, we'd need a design for doing that. So that would also look much more at the sort of finance side of things and how we build financial models for all this. Then phase 2 would actually be doing something, running a pilot project. And for me, this is about taking a street and saying, right, let's improve all the houses on this street, all in a oneer, and let's think about the spaces between the buildings as well. And then we do that project, make sure it's done right, learn as much as possible, such that eventually we can have a street by street rollout of all the other streets in Torry. So that's the general kind of what we're trying to work towards and what we're trying to get funding for. But the big question is, like, why are we doing this? And for me, there's just a huge opportunity in this. First of all, it's about the health benefits. My team go into homes across Aberdeen and Aberdeenshire all the time, and we're seeing damp and mould in people's homes, and just a lot of bad indoor air quality. A lot of people, they've got a whacking great gas boiler or oil boiler in their home, but they still just actually struggle to heat their homes. Particularly the old granite homes. So, all of this takes its toll. A report last year from the Building Research Establishment showed that something like 40% of the costs of our NHS, running our NHS, can be attributed to the state of our buildings. 40%. Now, don't get me wrong, that's not all about energy efficiency. I think the top figure is actually about trips and falls. But there is a huge amount that can be done to our housing to reduce the burden on our NHS. And last year, for the first time, a death certificate for a young lad in England was registered, the cause of death being black mould, because a lot of people are just, tolerating these conditions, and it's very bad for respiratory health, among other things. So yeah, the health benefits of better housing is phenomenal. Jobs is the next one. The just transition, we're all hearing that phrase at the moment, and of course, the oil and gas industry is talking about, being careful and all this stuff. But for me, if we are going to meet our climate objectives and we're going to meet the Scottish Government's heat and building strategy, that heat and building strategy requires every home in Aberdeen to have an EPC of C in 10 years' time. That's 200 houses every week that we need to retrofit, starting now. 200 houses every week. We need an army of people. That's 4,000 jobs if we want it. Realistically in Aberdeen, the oil industry only really sort of supports 10,000 direct jobs. So, for me, that's a huge opportunity working in our local communities. Fuel poverty. The Energy Savings Trust, I don't know if anyone's heard of the Energy Savings Trust. They were set up by the government 30 years ago, and they provide grants and loans. But the Energy Savings Trust has been around all that time, and actually fuel poverty has only gone up in this country, especially with the recent price rises in energy. 30% of Scotland is thought to be in fuel poverty now, where people are spending more than 10% of their household income on their energy bills. So, for me, street by street retrofit is going to solve that. And then we've got other things, other bigger picture of things. The Climate Change Act of Scotland, requires us to be reaching net zero by 2045 and halving our emissions by 2030. There's a lot of politics going on about whether that's achievable or not, but we've got to do it. And climate change isn't just about reducing emissions; it's also thinking about how the changing climate in the future is going to affect us. So getting ready for adapting to other things like hotter summers, drier summers. So overheating in buildings will become more of a risk. So the main thing I really want to get across here is that the government is, set itself lots of really stringent objectives to meet climate change targets, and they're putting money towards it. They're not putting enough money towards it yet, but they should be, and hopefully they will be. And that, this is all part of trying to address that as well. And the final point I've got on this slide here is about the national grid, right? So decarbonising is largely about electrifying everything. So electric cars, electric buses, electric homes. But the national grid have told us that if we're going to electrify everything, we need to have some efficiency on the way, because otherwise we'll need 3 times as many wind turbines and so on. So, if we can reduce the energy use in our homes, then we should be doing it. So, another big case for why we should be retrofitting our homes and improving our homes is that we can't build ourselves out of this situation. So this graph shows the emissions from building a house and then at the end of its life, demolishing it. So you can see that if we build a new house, in the short term, we create this huge spike in emissions, which is accounts for 60% of the emissions of that building over its whole life. So, we can't just demolish all the existing houses and build new, because we'll blow our carbon budget right away. So, and if we think forward to 2050, 2045, even with all the house building we need to do, 80% of the homes that will exist in 2050 have already been built. So we've got to upgrade our existing homes. But the other one, if we're thinking about it in Torry, we've got 500 homes that are affected by RAAC. if we cannot, all these things I've been talking about are all reasons why we should be not demolishing those houses. But actually, what about the social impacts of all this? We're already seeing some of the RAAC houses being boarded up. You know, how does that make you feel when you walk down the street? What are we doing to our community if we're going to lose 10% of our community? So, you know, there's a huge social impact here that we need to consider as well. So, how do we do it? How do we do retrofit?
You can listen to the full version of Matt's retrofit talk in a bonus 1000 Better Stories episode due out next week. Now it's time to head for the final GO Torry destination, St. Fittick's Park. So I'm getting closer to the tent near the outdoor classroom in St. Fittick's Park. Lots of kids around playing basketball, or maybe it's football on the basketball court. Got bunting. Oh my goodness, there's like tree planting. It's amazing.
We're currently standing in St. Fittick's Park. It is one of the last remaining public green spaces in this side of Aberdeen. To get anywhere else and see any other green space, you have to travel 20 miles south down the road, or you go across the bridges. There's a geographical disconnect between us and the rest of Aberdeen. That makes it obviously important from social and health terms, because being a public park, there's no charge to access it, and it means anyone from the area can just pop on down. They can bring their dogs, they can have their kids. There's a playground nearby, some kids playing football, I think, right now. And we have just got built this new outdoor classroom space so we can use it as a meeting point. We're very close to the coast, so you can actually walk nearby and actually get a view of the sea. And there is that aspect of it being really in the heart of the community. It's a space that for many years has been somewhat neglected in that front. But I think that now is the time to really make people aware that we can use this space. I like it, especially down by the marsh. It's the prettiest bit. I see heron there. I don't see them anywhere else. They're just there. For me, it's a really good place to actually come down and just walk around and being in, like, you're in nature, but you can kind of be as included as you want because there's so much space. I am Nathaniel. I represent Friends of St. Fittick's Park, and today I've been dressing up as St. Fittick himself. I live down by the Victoria Bridge, so it's not far from here. I was able to walk in today, which is good. And I got involved with the park group to try and rebuild my community. I used to be here mainly as a student, and then all my friends moved away, and I didn't. So I've been trying to just sort of get in and help any possible way I can, even if it means being silly. For anyone who isn't seeing this, it's a brown monk's outfit. I also have a cowl that's also made of this brown cotton fabric, and a cross plated with pretend gold. St. Fittick is the person this park is named after, a 7th century monk. He was meant to come to Scotland to teach the Picts everything about Christianity. The people he was sailing with didn't trust him. There was a storm and they decided he was the reason for it, so they chucked him overboard. He survived and washed ashore, but was dehydrated and obviously couldn't drink the salt water of the sea, but found there was a natural spring here and was able to drink that, and so he lived and declared it a holy site of sorts, because obviously God had graced him the will to survive and the ability to survive. There's a little church a bit further up the hill to east from where we're standing right this moment, and I'm here today to basically be the mascot of the event. I've been trying to get kids to plant trees, and I've been going around telling everyone that I'm wishing them many blessings, and it's all very silly and fun. If we can keep this going as a regular event, I think it can turn out to be something really positive and uplifting for the community, because people need to be reminded sometimes that we're all actually here together and we can do fun things together. It's not all the serious stuff. There's a lot of really awful things going on right now, and this is an example of something positive and actually brilliant, you know?
That's really intact. Fantastic.
So can I ask what you're doing?
We're part of North East Scotland Mammal Network, and we're just a group of folk that are interested in mammals in Aberdeen and Aberdeenshire, just kind of raising awareness of the mammals that we have. in the area and some of the issues that they face, some of the threats that they face. And today one of the activities that we are doing is dissecting oil pellets, which is lots and lots of fun, and this young lady is doing an absolutely excellent job. So you can see lots of the bones very clearly.
Oh wow, that's a skull.
Yep, got really intact skull there, so I think this one is possibly a bankful.
It's the whole head, isn't it?
It
getting a little
is.
bit creepy, like it's angry.
I'm Eva Champel. I'm part of Open Source, the organisation who supported the Torry People's Assembly, the second Torry People's Assembly, last year. And we've been working since then on this event today, GO Torry. So it's been I think really successful. And what happened after the assembly was, well, the first surprise for me was that the group wanted to keep on meeting. Because I was kind of thinking that once we finished the assembly, that would be it, and we had some action points that came out of it. But the group was really keen to carry on meeting, and we've followed about 3 or 4 different routes. There were some people who got really energised by, I think, the process of outreach that we'd done, and noticing that there were actually lots more good things happening in Torry than they'd realised, but that quite often the people who they spoke to didn't know about each other. So there was this kind of quite strong feeling in 2 or 3 people of like, let's network, let's have some events where we bring people together, we think about Torry, we think about the kinds of things we've been talking about in the assembly and what's next. The outdoor classroom that we are here to celebrate is really galvanised by conversations that happened as part of that networking. And one of the other things that came out of that process was an idea for a community website, which would, again, show all the amazing things that are happening in Torry and make it really easy to find them all in one website. So there's been a lot of work gone on in the background to kind of develop that with Station House Media Unit, SHMU. And then the last strand that came out of the assembly was this retrofit ideas, community retrofit idea. Up to now, retrofitting your property, it's been really privatised. It's been like, if you can afford it and if you've got the interest, then you will do it. If you can't afford it, or if it's not top of your agenda, then you won't do it. But this idea of community retrofit is starting to come in, which means that this is something that we're doing together as a kind of like little collectives. And in Torry, we have this crazy dream, crazy because it's never been done before at this scale, to retrofit the whole of Torry. That's 5,000 houses, and I believe the estimate is that it might take 15 years to do it, and that's once we've actually kind of got the wind in our sails, which we haven't yet. And for us today has been about bringing that idea out into the public and starting to talk with people about it. And we were particularly interested because the RAAC crisis hit kind of halfway through the process of us developing this project, and at first we kind of saw it as a real impediment to us talking about it because people were understandably so upset about the RAAC and the fact that people were losing their homes. The council sounded like they wanted to demolish. And we thought if we start talking about people's houses, not about RAAC, then folk are going to A, be confused, and B, be quite angry that we're prioritising something in the face of this crisis. But then this really cool idea, I think, got developed. Why not do both? Why don't we just use that as an opportunity and we can do those houses first? So this is an idea that we've already sort of sent into Scottish Government. We haven't had a lot back yet. And we're engaging with the council too on that. So hopefully that's something that could get taken up so that people's houses don't get demolished, they actually get upgraded.
My back is really killing me. But see, when I stand up there and I look across into that, I feel it's been very worthwhile. So this is apples and plums. But the kids have helped plant them as well. So we come and have a look here. We've got little plaques. It's the name of the tree, so it's red falstaff, that one. And the person that helped us plant it. So part of that idea was to have the kids take ownership of it as well. So they'll be guardians of the orchard.
Everybody!
way! Right this way! The shepherd is on doing his job. Wonderful work, guys. Love it.
Thank you. I'm Richard Kye. I am a Torry resident and also a member of Friends of St Fittick's Park. We're honoured today with the original St Fittick. This wonderful classroom is courtesy of one of the many funds that the Scottish Government has provided, participatory budget fund. And many thanks to the representative from Scottish Government, our MSP Maggie Chapman. The classroom's open for all, was voted for by the community, and it's for everybody in the community to use. I'd better say that in a few years, if things don't go well, there could be 3 dirty great big factories down there, huge amounts of wetlands built over, so save St Fittick's Park, that would be the message from today. So that's it, thank you all.
As your resident St Fittick today, I thought it makes sense to bring some of his spirit to the event. As an enlightened Christian, he would have probably loved to see a classroom space like this in St Fittick's Park. A verse from the Bible which he probably held so dear was Thessalonians 5:11. Therefore encourage one another and build one another up just as you are doing. Now take it away.
What about your word of the day?
Stealthy resistance. I don't know, it's just claiming the park for the community. And that's what is needed to save the park from the development by creating beauty and useful resources for the community and edible fruits and but still it's resistance, right? It's resistance to this park being taken.
Building up resilience as well.
Yeah, both resistance and resilience.
It was, again, a great privilege to witness the day of community coming together in celebration. The idea is clearly gathering momentum. Disappointingly, the appeal against Council's decision to allow for energy transition zone development on a large chunk of the park failed this summer. In a statement published on their Facebook page on the 7th of August, Friends of St Fittick's Park said, "We are dismayed but not discouraged. We will continue to oppose the industrialisation of the community's beloved park by all legal means." In the meantime, the St Fittick's outdoor classroom is making acts of stealthy resistance much easier for the locals, reclaiming the space for the community, 1B hotel building workshop at a time. And the Torry Assembly website is now live too. You can download a collection of poetry from the GO Torry Day at Tullus Community Centre and find out more about Torry Retrofit Project. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please give it a like and share it with others. It'll really help us reach a wider audience. If something exciting is happening in your own community, be sure to let us know so that we can help you tell your own story. You can drop our story weavers a line at stories@scan.scot. It's scan, SCCAN, .scot, SCOT. We also offer training and mini-grant support to community storytellers. To keep up to date with our offerings and everything Scan, check out our website at scan.scot or find us on Twitter, Facebook or Instagram, or simply sign up to the newsletter.